Hello viewers and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. I'm your host Choo once again. Today we're checking out another multiplayer commentary. So recently I've been noticing that not a lot of people like to play the REDFOR inside the game. Well, I suppose it used to be called the Warsaw Pact. And from what I've noticed, a lot of people just seem to, just sort of start up their own lobby, let the NATO or the Blue 4 team, which is, pretty much all the Western countries fill up, and then the game sort of just goes into this period where we wait for the other team to really just show up. So what I've done here today is that I've built a REDFOR deck. It's called the Red Dawns, and well, we're going to be taking a look at their side of the faction today. So with that sort of said, let us begin. Now, we're playing on the map, I think it's called Apocalypse Imminent, and it typically starts off with this whole air rush of troops. So with that said, I'm bringing in some of these Yak 38 bombers to just sort of petrol bomb the area, and it looks like my opponents here is going to try to keep this their land steady with a pack of Apache helicopters. So I'm going to bring my Yaks in to just sort of kill off all of these all of the infantry that they're bringing into that zone. And there we go, bombs are dropped. Unfortunately, they're probably going to nick my aircraft with a few shots here, but that should stall up their infantry just for a little bit. So yeah, this map mainly, this map I don't particularly like it due to the fact that it starts off as this infantry blurb, but I suppose this is workable. And with that said, the map sort of just begins, and we will just sort of duel it out. With the Pact nations here, I'm getting the impression that not a lot of people like to play them simply because their troops are not exactly what you would kind of expect coming from the other faction. Like namely the Western countries. I mean, they have these Apaches and all that stuff, which have these very, very high-tech weapons that do quite a lot of damage, and they're also fairly accurate, whereas the Pack kind of where the REDFOR kind of depend more so on numbers than anything. So, we're currently in the process of establishing front lines, and we're playing on the destruction game mode once again. So, inside this game mode, it's mainly about racking up points. It's not necessarily about territory. So what I think I'll do here is that I'll bring in some of the unique units that I have here to show you guys, and we're going to just sort of play around with them, see what we can pick off of the enemies' sides here. And starting off, I think I'll try to get my Rolands here, or my books too. Maybe not. I'm thinking, can I take out those Apaches with my book? And it doesn't look like I can, so I think I'll move them back a little bit just for now. But yeah, we'll try to duel it out with these guys and really see what we can do. Starting off, I think I can do some harassment by bringing up some artillery, which I'll be able to afford in just a little bit. But I'm going to start off with one of these unique units, which is the KA-52, and I believe this is a prototype unit for the USSR. And one of these things are fairly deadly, mainly because they are recon helicopters that have the added bonus of having anti-air missiles and anti-radar missiles too. So they're very, very unique in that sense, where they can take on these Apache helicopters just on themselves, and they can also destroy these Mortar Roland AA vehicles too, making them fairly multi-purpose use like that. In addition to the fact that, I mean, they can do recon right as well. So I'm going to try to bank in here, and I'm going to see if I can pick off one of these. Let's see, that is an infrared vehicle, so we can't necessarily do much to that, but I want to see if I can pick off one of these Apaches with one of these infrared missiles. So I try to bank in here. This is fairly risky because this KA-52 is fairly valuable, and I'll just really let it fire off a few of these, see whether or not it can get this Apache. Now this thing, unfortunately, it only carries a fairly small-sized payload, but I mean, if it can pick off one of these Apaches, it will be effectively golden. Yep, there we go. So we picked off one Apache with this KA-52. Those things are worth 140 points each, so slightly less than our KA, but this KA is, as you can probably tell, it's a decently effective vehicle. They also have one of those Mortar Roland vehicles back there too, and that is another target that I want. But currently it looks like we're going to have to go back and really rearm this thing. Or maybe we could make another pass in here. I'll try to make another pass in here and clear out that area. Ah, it looks like my ally also has one of these things too, so he's banking his in to just sort of take a look at that area. Let's see what he's firing. He's firing those infrared missiles too, and it looks like he picked off one of their scouts. So those things are fairly unique. They're very, very useful little recon helicopters. The only problem is that they are fairly vulnerable to airplanes, and being expensive targets, you know, your opponent might actually risk the chance of losing perhaps one of his lesser costing airplanes to do that. Probably should have mentioned this a little bit earlier, but this deck, it's a multi-purpose deck. I call it Red Dawns because I think it's a nice, you know, introductory deck, a general purpose deck to the USSR, which is the most, I would say, omni-purpose REDFOR nation there is. And what I have here is a whole bunch of the basic infantry, the Motostreliki infantry. These are just motorized infantry, would be the translation into Russian. The main thing about them is that they're fairly cheap, they are decently effective, and again, they play into the Russian gameplay of just being primarily numbers heavy. In addition to that, I have one of these book setups, and these are very, very long range anti-air launchers. They're fairly vulnerable and they're fairly heavy to anti-radar missiles, but then again, you can turn them off and they'll be fine. So with that sort of said, the game continues to develop. I'm going to bring up a BRDM vehicle to contest this Dmitry over here, and to lock down that zone. In the meantime, I want to see whether or not I can bank in here to get a few more picks off of the enemy. Yeah, one of the problems with Warsaw Pact is that these blue REDFOR nations is that they really had to play sort of based on numbers, but at the same time the game's destruction game mode doesn't necessarily encourage that too. So I see another one of those AE Cobras there, and I'm thinking maybe that's a nice juicy target, maybe it's not. I'm gonna try to pick that off anyhow. So I'm gonna send in my KA-52, and it's gonna go from the side this time, and we want to bank it in again just to see if we can sort of get any picks here. I want to get that Cobra and that Apache back in there. I'm kind of wondering if these Pumas dropped off infrared AA infantry. That would be a big problem if they did. But overall, I mean, this KA has sort of has almost paid for itself. Nope, don't fire just yet. Don't target those Pumas. We want to go for the juicier targets in the back. There we go. Lock onto the Cobra. And I'm gonna guess that it's gonna use up all of its ammunition again before taking the thing out. Come on! Oh my god, the reload for this thing isn't that great. Oh, it's gonna score one direct hit and another one. Perfect. So, very, very useful little KA vehicle, though it perhaps it isn't necessarily the most effective thing just for longevity there. With that said, I'm going to bring in some of my mortar units to try to shell out the opponent too. Seeing as how we have quite a bit of recon coming from the helicopter itself and this recon squad that I've deployed. On my allies' side, it looks like the enemy is making a push, and within the destruction game mode, I mean, it's not about holding ground. So, in theory, if you just sort of hold your natural side of the map, you should actually be able to win the game. I mean, we sort of lost the early portion of the game by not capturing this zone, but it's not necessarily that big of a problem, just due to the fact that you don't necessarily need to cap zones to win inside this game mode. So it looks like they are having a air skirmish again. KA-52 really dominating here as well, firing off those infrared missiles. Really, really useful scouting vehicle, and it's really pretty useful vehicle just in general. It's a prototype vehicle, meaning that it's actually only available for the USSR if you choose them as the nationality for the deck, or alternatively as the regional faction, kind of like the Commonwealth. Although I actually don't believe there is one for the USSR there. Moving forwards, I'm going to buy some mortars, and these mortars are another little fairly useful unit that's present inside the game. The thing about these Nona mortars is that they are very, very heavy mortars for what it's worth, but they're also very, very deadly mortars for what they're worth as well. Coming from the Commonwealth deck, inside that deck we showed off some very, very fast-firing mortars. These guys are pretty much the exact opposite, although they fulfill the exact same role, and they are a little bit cheaper, though they are a little bit slower, unfortunately. The main thing about these guys is that they carry very, very deadly artillery rounds with this 5 HE power, and they can shoot fairly far as well, so 8 kilometers as well, making them fairly useful in that regards. And the thing is that once you couple them with scouting vehicles of sorts, they are fairly potent in taking down a large number of different types of targets. What I'm going to do here is that I see my opponent has their aircraft in flight. Sometimes your aircraft will just sort of land on the ground by themselves, like this one over here. Or no, that one's flying. Sometimes your aircraft land by yourselves, but it doesn't look like these guys are. In that case, I mean, you can pick them off with these mortars too, which makes them fairly interesting. But right now, because there's nothing necessarily on the ground right now, I'm going to try to bank my planes around and get to a location where I can really do something. I think I'll buy some more recon infantry, and I'll actually buy one of these sniper teams to show you guys that as well. Like the Commonwealth, I mean, the Russians have these snipers. They're Spetsnaz VMF guys. They have very good optics and exceptional stealth, as always with these elite types of infantry. But their sniper rifle isn't as powerful as the Commonwealth guys, mainly because of the fact that their range is only 1 kilometer. The other one was, I believe, a kilometer and a half. Still fairly deadly though. Now, I want to pick off that Apache. I don't know anything about the center zone, so that is obviously quite a big problem. The thing about these radar-guided missiles is that they can actually fire on them on their own. No, don't hit the Pumas. I want to hit the juicier targets over here. And the thing about scouts in conjunction with in conjunction with scouts is that as soon as we identify these AT or these AA posts, these AA vehicles are, generally speaking, I mean, they're fairly weak, and like once we identify them, unfortunately it looks like we were able to do damage to that Apache, but we weren't able to take it out. Once we identify these little AA vehicles, we can then drop these heavy mortars on them, and these mortars do quite a bit of damage each, and they have a very large AoE radius, so let's see if this can hit. And there we go, so that is another 80 points for us. Again, really, really potent vehicle, just really due to how we use them. So one vehicle is down. I see another. I see a tank this time. I'm not really sure if the mortars can go up against that, but we'll try, and we'll try to take that down. In the meantime, I'll buy a lesser scout helicopter, just kind of because. No, that's not a scout helicopter. Where are my lesser scout helicopters? I'm gonna buy another one of these things just so that we can get a bit of a more look into this section of the map. So yeah, very, very useful units here. One of the problems with these mortars is that, unfortunately, unlike the NATO equivalents, those fast-firing mortars, they honestly don't carry that much ammunition, which is a problem. Meaning that they do require a fairly large number of resupply vehicles being next to them, and really just constantly feeding them those juicy ammunition shots, really. But that's a fairly small problem for what they're worth. What is that? What are these things over here? I see a couple of APCs over there, so I'm going to bombard that, and I'm going to try to take that out. Let's see what the score is. Currently we hold about 1,000 out of 4,000 points required to win. You know, my memory is terrible. I think I talked about the destruction game mode, but just in the case I didn't, the game mode that we are currently playing is destruction. The ultimate purpose is to rack up destruction points. Vehicles have a cost, or just units in general have a cost associated with them. If once we take out units we gain points, as soon as we hit that 4,000 mark we win, and likewise goes with the enemy. So with that said, we want to continuously pick off enemy units, and I'm going to use these mortars to great effect for that. I see another AA vehicle in the back, and this is one of the unique ones that the French have. It's a Crotale, fire and forget infrared missile launcher, meaning that it's actually invulnerable to our radar guided missiles on our KA-52, but however it has a lesser range, unfortunately, is one problem with it. They're still fairly deadly though, and I want to pick that thing off. My enemy is moving that damn thing around, and I want to see where he stops it, because generally once people move these, they think they're safe as soon as they move it. So it looks like it only has 2 health bars left, so another barrage should be able to finish that off and take that thing down. It looks like my resupply trucks are here just in the nick of time, so we'll get them resupplied, and hopefully this barrage will kill off this Crotale. Yeah, again, these mortars are very, very heavy. While they have a low rate of fire, so long as it hits the general vicinity of whatever you want to hit, they do a good job in destroying them. And these Pumas should be low enough to the ground that my Nunas here will be able to destroy them. It looks like they're dropping some infantry over here. They're dropping something over here, so I'm going to get my recon helicopter to take a look there. In the meantime, I want that Apache dead because it's so valuable. Let's see if I can make another jab here. Actually, what I'm gonna do here is my KA has spotted this Roland over there. Again, through precision, my Nonos can take that thing out with a fair amount of ease. So we'll try to do that. And these recon, or rather these little, whatever you call them, cargo trucks. Keep on forgetting just very, very generic terms like that. They're gonna go back to base and resupply. As you can see, I mean, these mortars, they do use a fair amount of supply, which the NATO mortars, they don't. I see some enemy aircraft, so I'm actually going to deploy some of our unique little aircraft to deal with them. I have some of these MiG-31s, and the unique thing about them is that they are very, very, they have a very, very long AA range. They have a, if you notice on the side panel there, they have a range inside the 10-kilometer range, which is almost double than what the rest of them have. With that said, they're very potent in taking out practically any aircraft, assuming that they can get a hit on them. They have a accuracy of about 50%. As soon as one of these vehicles are ready, I'm able to point up this, or no, maybe not. Looks like I'm mistaken. They actually have an accuracy of 30%. They have an upgraded version of the vehicle that has a accuracy of around 50% though. But these guys, I mean, they're still fairly potent. If you have 2 of them, you're just able to continuously have them in the air, and because of their long range, you can practically deploy them at any point during the air skirmish, and you're able to get off at least 2 missiles onto the enemy, making them fairly deadly inside that respect. And we're really just going to continue this match, see what our opponents do here. I'm going to actually buy a few more vehicles to skirmish with the enemy. I'm going to buy a Conqueror's little AT or ATGM bike of sorts. And this Roland is hopefully going down. The good thing about these high explosive rounds is that they also stun your opponents typically on the first shot, making their getaways very, very slow. Oh, that was almost right on top of it. Unfortunately, it didn't pummel the thing to death. One more barrage. Come on, can we get one more? Looks like my opponent here is deciding to drop some counter artillery onto us. So I mean, that's that. So long as that Roland stays in the same position, we're gonna get off another 2 barrages, I want to say, and I'm gonna try to take that thing out. And I think that is enough. Yeah, because if this last one hits, then I think that'll be a little too much heat for us to stay inside this zone. The thing about these Nonos is that, well, they have a fairly low speed just off roads. They have a very high speed on roads. So one thing that you can actually do to counter the effects of that low speed is that if your opponent tries to bring, say, quite a bit of fire onto you, some counter battery fire onto you, you can position these things to fire close to roads, and as soon as you know, the heat comes down on you, you can just pull away right away, right? So there's also that. It's very one thing about these vehicles that make them quite useful. I'm gonna bring up another AA vehicle over here. I'm gonna bring up a Tor. And these are a bit of a side grade coming from. Oh, this is not my KA-52. This is a KA-29. This is more or less a transport copter, and they brought my Spetsnaz group over here. I'm gonna get these guys over here to just sort of check out this village. The thing about the Tors is that they're fairly different in that they also use radar guided missiles, but the thing is that I believe they have slightly better characteristics when hitting helicopters, and they also have a very long range for that, making them fairly useful. In addition to that, I mean, these things are typically a little faster too, I believe, although I like to have both of these books and these Tors all in hand. Yeah, they're slightly faster. I see some more of those juicy aircraft. This one's actually landed on... No, maybe not. No, it's not landed on the ground. My mistake. If it was, though, that would have been nice. We would have been able to snipe out with our artillery as well. So, my opponent really likes to buy these Apaches. Unfortunately, they just go down constantly for him. And that Odette's hopefully dead too. And we'll pull these guys back. So, I think it's time to make an assault. So I think I'll pile up some infantry here, and we'll see what we can do here to make some progress, and I'll buy some tanks too as well. For the Russian airplanes, I have a few fairly useful aircraft, although they're more or less sidelined when compared to the ground forces. Unfortunately, the aircraft that you get for got a 2-in-1 in there. Hit 2 of those AE Cobras. The thing about the Russian aircraft is that they, like, I mean, realistically, they were meant to be produced in mass, and I mean, if you bought an F-14, it would cost right around the value of 2 to 3 MiGs for what it's worth. The thing about it inside this game is that the Russian aircraft are still fairly expensive, though my aircraft is mainly focused on those MiG-31s for air superiority. I have a few Yak bombers loaded with napalm to clear villages and stuff and such like that, but I also have some of these MiG-25s for general purpose seed and taking out aircraft, so they're a bit of a dual purpose aircraft. They don't necessarily do that great of a job going up against air vehicles, but they have a high ECM rating and a very high speed, making them fairly useful as dual purpose vehicles. The other thing I have is a set of these IL-102 bombers. They're very slow vehicles. They don't have any ECM, but they drop 14 500 kg bombs, making them very deadly if you can get them into the enemy's zone, of course. So we have some of those guys too, and we'll really see what we can do to further develop the situation. I'm gonna get one of my recon guys to cross the bridge over here and really just take a look. For whatever reason, the game seems to have this problem with bridges where at times one unit will cross and then the other unit just simply won't, but it looks like over here that problem has been solved, so I mean that is good. Let's see what we can do. Move my recon squad up even more, and I really just want to check out this center village and see if I can take that over for ourselves here in just a little bit. I'm going to bring up my sappers too to help them out. I also have some VDV infantry here, which have these long-range rockets, which make them fairly useful too. So they do have some things over here inside this village. They have a HCGM group of Milan missiles, and back there they appear to have some sort of general-purpose rocket launching thingy. Oh, they're going to target these vehicles. These guys need to bail. The infantry stays though. So, what I think I'll do is that I'll open up... Yeah, they're gonna pick off one of my BTRs. Those things aren't very expensive, so I'm actually fine with it. With that Milan team, what we can do is that we can get our infantry to clear that. I'm gonna move these books up because we can. And it looks like my opponent is deploying some of these twin Hueys to try to stop us. Well, that's fine. He can try to do that. Those twin Hueys are armed with 2 miniguns. They are... I wouldn't necessarily say they're all too effective. I'll bring in my my KA-52 to see whether or not I can sort of do some damage there. And I'm gonna get my infantry here with the sappers and all to move up and try to take this center village from the enemy. So we're gonna go up against some, oh, that's gonna hit my Tor, hopefully not. That was close. I want to engage those ATGM Milan people, but I don't necessarily want to risk my, my Tor, which is providing them air support. Or air cover, rather. Thanks, my infantry here is just, it's just taking a beating. I want to bring in some air power here, and I know that there's an AA vehicle over there, so I'm gonna bring those guys to try to help them out. I'm gonna get rid of this Milan team because that is actually the source of our little problem over here. I'll get the Motostriki to move on, and I'll bring in my KA to take out that Cobra, which is slowing our progress down here. Ah, he has one Huey landed there. Let's see whether or not we can bank a few shots into that thing. The tank that I have deployed there is a T255 AM. The thing about these tanks is that they have a ATGM launcher attached to them, and they're fairly cheap, meaning that they are able to harass some of the more expensive vehicles with a fair degree of ease, which is nice. And since it looks like there's not really many helicopters here worth blowing up, so I think I'll pull my troops back and I'll buy another helicopter. I'll buy one of these M4 AVs. I think I'll actually buy 2 of them. And the thing about them is that they are fairly useful in that they're very cheap compared to, say, the Akula. And they feature these ATGM missiles, which we can then use to pick off those Abrams and stuff and such like that. So I mean, overall, like, as soon as we start making those little pushes, honestly, this game sort of, it penalizes attacking, which I think leads to these very, very slow-paced games. But what we can do here is that we can bring in some of these harassing units to sort of remedy this problem. And in general, when you're playing with the Pact, if you make small pushes like that, typically, I mean, it honestly doesn't cost you that much to make them too. So going forwards, I'm gonna buy some more infantry just to try to move forwards here, really, and I'll actually put down a barrage down onto that town to sort of suppress them as well. What are some other units inside this deck that we haven't looked into just yet? I have some, I have a wide variety of different harassing units, such as these Conquerors missiles, some defensive units like these ASU guns, which are very, very weak cannon-based units, but they're cheap, and if you can ambush your opponents with them by just, say, putting them in some forests like this, and waiting until tanks cross the bridge, they're also fairly potent as well. With that sort of said, I think this match will be a little bit longer than what I would like it to, so I'll see you guys next time where we take a look at another deck